Hello everybody, Gisele Grenier here. In this video I'm going to create a art journal page based on a theme, and that's what I'm doing this year. Is everything's based on feelings and themes, not woo-woo stuff, but just, and it's early 2022 and my theme is I wanted to be traveling. We shouldn't even be in Canada right now, should be on Grand Bahama Island, but with COVID not happening. Anyways, so just to give you an idea of what I'm doing, so I've got everything taken apart, or not apart but separated, because this is going to be a journal that's going to be a growing piece, and I've taken some scrapbook paper. These are 12 by 12 pages, because this is stuff that I don't use. I thought, you know what, I'm going to repurpose this stuff to use it, because I'm sick and tired of all this art supplies that sit in the unused stash, because I bought a package of something for one piece. Not anymore. I'm going to use the stuff. And so what I did is I went through the whole thing and I found stuff that was all in the blue themes. Okay. And what made me decide on this one was this particular thing here. I love the fish. So I'm going to use one of these pieces, and there'll be something on each one. Now, the nice one with these ones here is that you can do a full page spread, but at the end we bind everything, so you can coordinate, and then it gets to a point where the pages change to something else, but there is a little bit of that blue still in here. And I've got the glare there, so I'm going to see if I can put that right there. And I just realized that the lighting was a little bit bright, so I moved the light. Hopefully that's okay for you guys. All right, so I picked out my paper, and I'm going to be covering a lot of it up, so I'm not too worried about the style. And the thing with traveling, always, I go to collage pieces, sentiment, stamps or stencils, and paint. So I've got a process for everything. So I've got my paper. Now I'm going to pick my focal point. So I opened up my drawer. Of course, this guy was standing right at the top. Looks like a traveling person. Going to pop him down. Well, if the theme is going to be traveling, of course I've got to have a map. So I picked out some black and white map paper, and then in that same stash a little piece of text paper here, and thought, okay, well, I'll use that if there's a filler. Then the other thing is I've got my quote. So I've got the word home, travelers, traveling. So I may use one, I may use them all, I don't know. And then something that I always doing is working with numbers. And so this is a cutout from my brother's Scan and Cut. So I pulled these out here. So put that aside. Okay, so picked out the paper, picked out the sentiment, picked out my collage material. That's fine. What's next? Okay, well, stamps. And I've got this traveling set of stamps. So there was a border one here, and globes, and it doesn't matter the brand, whatever. You can even get digital stamps online. You don't have to buy anything new. You can use what you have in stash. Go to graphicsfairy.com, do a Google search for free digital stamps, and you can do something like that. And then for paints, so this is why I like to pick one thing out of each project to kind of push me outside of my comfort zone. And I am not comfortable working with yellows and oranges at all. So that's going to be my challenge for this piece, is doing something with yellow and orange. So something fell. So for the paints, I'm going to go through the supplies that I actually use at the very end, because you guys know that the piece guides me. So I may use these, I may add more, I don't know. So Decor Media matte medium. Then this little thing is my Decor Chalky Gesso, the white. Decor Media Fluid Acrylics, titanium white, pearl orange, Hansa yellow medium, burnt sienna, ultramarine blue, and raw umber. Oh, and if the stamps, I've got my Stays On, which is permanent, and blah, blah, blah. That's it. Okay, so first thing I want to do is I want to gesso that, and I'm going to use my finger for this. The chalky gesso I like because it's applied thinly. You can have everything transparent and then choose how you want to push stuff into the distance. Okay, so using my finger was something I love doing with an artist trading card, but this is pretty big. Just don't. Okay, well, I like the idea of using my finger, but what if I went to using a cosmetic sponge? I've got pouncers, but they're drying right now. See, I find with the cosmetic sponge, I don't get the shapes, the irregular shapes, and I don't actually make a connection with the art piece. So, So this here, dry. This is dry. You don't want it wet. And if the paper that you're using is quite porous, then you can also put a sealer on there if you want. So I'll move it a little bit more, but I want like a rough. All I'm doing is I'm pushing the color of the paper back, because if I were to put yellow and orange directly on top of that, especially the orange is going to be gray, a muddy gray, and the yellow is going to turn green. So that's why I'm using the gesso. But around these pieces here, no, I'm going to cover that guy. But I can choose to just lightly go over that. Now, one thing is when I start working on the other side, so I got gesso on here, I'm going to have to be a little bit more careful. You have to be a little bit more careful. And one thing too, when working with your fingers, you can actually feel when the paint gets tacky or wet. Using a cosmetic sponge, no. You kind of have to really be aware of the feeling. Okay, let me just, no, see, that's dry already, so let me just go in, cover a little bit more of that. This I'm not too worried about because I'm going to have matte paper here. Not a fan of these flowers, so I'm just going to cover that a little bit more. Just leaving enough to show through. Just enough. But I'm going to leave that in this dark here area here. But let me just break up some of that white space. This is where you can come in. And I really don't like those flowers. And then from here, let it dry and I can add more if I want. But see how it's got some irregular shapes here? Okay. But I want to make sure that the whole piece is covered with gesso, because when it comes to putting the paint on, I'm going to be dipping the paper into paint puddles. So I want to make sure that the whole thing is covered in gesso. Otherwise, this stuff will just suck it all up and the paper will expand and, you know. All right, so it's dry already. And looking here. And this is all dependent, too, on the paper that you're actually using. I really don't like those flowers. I really don't like those flowers. And the whiter the paper is with the gesso, the more vibrant the color is going to be. It's like there was that wherever he is now, there was that looked like a Napoleon style image. Didn't like it, so was able to cover it up completely. But the flowers, nope, they won't cover up. So it would take lots and lots and lots of gesso to cover that. So you get a baby white. Okay, now we're going to be able to go right directly to working with the next step. Let me just clean this up. One of the reasons why I didn't do a heck of a lot of work, whoopsie, with art journaling is because it drove me crazy when I would get paint on the inside. Well, what I'm going to do is I've got some low tack masking tape, and I'll just do do the edges. And the other thing too is you can put wax paper here, then just tape the edges and it won't, nothing will happen. All right, that takes care of that. Now I'm going to move all my pieces out of the way. Let me just get those out of the way. And okay, I'm gonna make a couple of mixes. Now, if you have distress inks and all that stuff, you can use that. I prefer my stuff being permanent. So Hansa Yellow Medium, I'm gonna move that up. Stuff that I'm gonna end up using. I want to put that aside to make sure I give you a complete list. And putting it in the description, history has proven a lot of people don't even bother reading the description. I've gotten emails from people, what supplies did you use? I said, well, it's in the description. And they don't read it. So I don't bother anymore. Now I just tell you what I'm using. So I'm going to do chromatic black, so equal parts of ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. And then let's say right over here, I'm going to do another one, ultramarine blue and raw umber. And I want that to be more ultramarine blue. So as you see, now the colors used, okay, they're not typical colors that go with each other on the color wheel. The burnt sienna, raw umber, yeah, so there's the 4. Raw sienna, burnt umber, and raw umber. Those 4 go together. But using blue, orange, and yellow, these 2 go together. These do not. Okay, so I have to make sure that I don't mix these 2 together in a paint puddle, otherwise I'll get gray. We will need a gray, but I want to use the chromatic blacks for my grays. So just to make sure that this is not being used as it is, it's being used to make another color. All right, so put those there. And white, I'm going to use this white. Could use the gesso as well. And that's going to be used to lighten the value. All right. So I'm going to mix these up. And you need a little mister bottle handy. Okay, it takes care of that. And I'm going to go right into this one. And I used raw umber for this one because it is more of a neutral dark brown, and could use a little bit more. And whereas a burnt sienna is more on the red side. Now, if you're new to watching my videos, there's a way that I test out what the true underlying colors is, because you can't see it on the palette. It looks dark, right? You can't really tell what it is. So what you do is you take a piece of white paper. It has to be white paper. And you take some white on the side, pick up a little bit of that paint, and you put it on a swatch card. And if you're new to color mixing, what to do is write down what you've done and then create a color mixing chart. So what this tells me is the ultramarine blue and burnt sienna made a more neutral gray, whereas the ultramarine blue and raw umber made more of a blue gray. Very different looks. This one here is a bit more on the red side, and this one here is a little bit more on the deep blue side. All right, so that's that. And let's see, let's get some water in there. Oh, have to mix with some white. Hang on. I just want to turn it into a gray. Okay, that's fine. And I can just use what's in there, mix that up. And this one here will just be a little bit darker. Palette paper may have been a better choice for this. All right, so let's take some of that. Let's take some of that. Add a lot of water of that. And normally I would just say use matte medium, but we need this to be really watery. Okay. And I put this too far. I put this too far. Mix it up really well. Let it contract. Oh, I don't like this orange. I'm not a fan of, I'm not a fan of orange at all. So with it contracting, now what you can do, you can just take this and you can just dip, and not enough water, so let me just spray that. And get another paper towel. Oh, fresh paper towel. Let's block that up a little bit. That has too much pigment. That's the, and it's not a problem per se with the paints, you know, with it being too much pigment. The Decor paints are phenomenal when it comes to pigment strength. But when I want something really translucent, that's where it becomes a little bit of a problem. Now I can, oh, where is it? I've got watercolor medium, which I can add. And I get a stick. What I need to do is I need to make sure this is all broken up. See, it's really thick. Okay. Yep, I'm gonna have to keep blotting it up. It's just, the pigment's just too thick. And there's drying time involved as well. So what I want these little dots here. Yeah, that one's good. And we'll drip. Okay, that's blot. So what we're looking for is a inky watercolor style. Each layer has to be dried. So there is a lot of drying time involved here. Now the beauty of doing it this way is that if you end up putting too much paint on there, you just go back over it with gesso. So that's why if you use a water-soluble product, then that's not really possible. You put gesso on it and the gesso is going to turn white. Turn that tinted color. I wonder if I should zoom the camera out. Hang on a second. Oh, that's as far as it goes. All right, so now, see, this is what I want here. These little dots here. Ooh, I like that. Looks like a unicorn. I'm just gonna, too much. Now, with what I'm doing here, it's not giving me the effect I want. I'm not going to get pissed off about it because I'm learning. I'm learning what the paints can do. See, I want this here. Okay, that orange isn't bad. That's not bad. I lost my unicorn though. I don't like that shape. But I like what it looks like when I blot it out. Whoops. Whoopsie. Well, that's fine. Now the other thing I can do, I've got my little eyedropper here. What if, oh, yeah. The bubble. Oh, yeah. Oh, see when it mixes with the gray? Let's just get rid of that mud. Okay, let's dry that. Now, if you've got time, just let it dry on its own, which will have a much better effect. what I like. The clean part. Where did it go? I like that circle that it created. See how the paper's curling now? It's because it hasn't fully dried yet. But that's easy to... That's one of the things too when you're working with thin paper. All right, so I'm going to get some more gray. I like this marbling right here. What if, take rubbing alcohol, ooh, okay, let me blot some of that up. Break that up. That's going to take a little bit more to dry. All right, so I cleaned up some of this stuff and I put some more paint there, put some more water. See how it really dulls down over the gray, but it neutralizes the orange. So the orange becomes a little bit brighter when you go over the yellow, but it dulls down when it goes over the gray. So just tilt it around. Now, I don't want to lose that because the theme of traveling, this looks like pathways. I love that. Okay, I'm going to dry that. And I'm going to do one more gray. And see how so much thicker it is now. So let me just blot some of that out just to neutralize that a bit more. Just want to neutralize a little bit of that yellow as well. And we'll just gently blot that out. And we're done. Okay, so let me clean this up. Oh, you know what? Why don't I do this? Take another, I've got another, this is my book that I'm using to block out a lot of that bright stuff. Just use that to, that's cool. Using that to blot the light reflection. Oh, I didn't even have to use paper towel. Instant book of backgrounds. Alrighty. And this is something I'm going to have to start doing on a regular basis, is wiping up my table, especially when I start working more in the journal. Now I've got a couple of journals on the go, and so one's going to be travel theme, one's going to be experimenting. I did that before, and one of the journals that I have, and Dark Side of Vintage. So my experimenting journal, which is nothing but experimenting, it's just full of experiments, and that journal's full, so I'm going to work a little bit more with that. All right. Where's my heat gun? Oh, gonna quickly. And my heat gun, I think, is starting to break down a little bit. I have to see what's new on the market now, and something that's a little more energy efficient. Well, heat gun energy efficient. That doesn't exist. All right, so let's see. What are we going to do next? Let's start collaging. So I'm going to do a dry fit. Now, if I wasn't so lazy, I'd go and I'd iron this to flatten this out. And there's meaning behind some of these numbers. So those of you that have been watching my videos for a while, the meaning of the numbers is in here. There's some type of meaning in there. All right, so let's see what I can do here. Let's see what I can do here. love that pathway there. I don't think I want to cover that up. I was thinking about putting there. No, I like that. So that's what I'm thinking. By working threes, so put that like that. I like working in threes. And then the sentiments, I'm not sure what I'm going to use. Something there. So I'm thinking of something like that. All right, so again, I could do this piece, 10 times and it'll look different, 10 different ways. Yeah, I'm just gonna go for it. Right, matte medium. Ooh, uh-oh, running out. So I'm gonna put a layer of matte medium over the entire piece. And doing that will also strengthen it, and as well, when using collage material, it will also strengthen it. Now what I should be doing is putting wax paper in between, because if any of this collage material, matte medium goes underneath, it's going to fuse the paper. Well, let's live dangerously, right? There we go. And let's see what happens here. And that was dumb because now I'm going to, yeah, that was dumb. Because now because I have matte medium there, I can't put that over there without it drying. So I'm going to cut this border. And let's pop that right there. And I just realized I forgot to edge the piece, but I have an idea what I can do with that. Let's put some matte medium over the whole piece. So I did a project, was it yesterday? Where to fuse elements together between borders was to use gesso over that edge. I kind of like that torn map look. The other thing too is I wanted to stain that a certain color. So what I can do with that is I could take a contrasting color to that. So let's say I want to use blue, because blue on top of the orange should be okay. I'm going to use the brush that has the matte medium in it. And I'm going to paint that, take a paper towel, and wipe that up. So when you're working on raw paper, it stains. Now, if I had covered this, actually, let's do that. Let's do the same thing. I'm going to clean my brush just so you can see the differences. Matte medium over the paper first, and let that dry. I'll do this one too. Matte medium over the paper first. The effect is going to be completely different when dipping it into that. Let's get rid of that. All right. So when you put blue on top of yellow, it's very strong, the contrast. Very, very strong. So let's go in here. This is almost dry. Let's go in here. Let's get this. Oh, let me just hang on. Let me just dry this just to be 100% sure. Turn over. Come on. Okay, so what we have is ultramarine blue on raw paper, and now see, it doesn't stain the same way because the matte medium is a barrier. It acts as a barrier layer. See? On raw paper, this doesn't happen. And if, I can use a baby wipe. So watch. You can take it and wipe everything off. So that's the beauty of using matte medium on top of your pieces. See that beautiful stain? Just a little bit outside. I can come in here and go on this edge here, make it darker. And it just moves. On raw paper, this doesn't happen. The edges. This does take a little bit longer to dry because the paint is sitting, whoopsie, on top of the matte medium. So just be aware of that. These baby wipes are really wet. There we go. Big difference, right? Big difference. So with this one here, oh, I put the stuff away. I wonder if I can. I cleaned up the blue. Nah. That's ultimate in laziness. Ultimate in laziness. I've got a little bit of paint on my palette here. Let's see if I can use that. Just stain that. See, there we go. There we go. Now, it should be green because land is green, not blue. Ah, live dangerously. Try that. But look at the difference. That's why I prefer putting matte medium on paper first, then painting it. Huge, huge difference. All right, so let's... I'm going to put this guy here. Let's put that there. Okay. Whoops. Paper's curled. Okay. And here. The other experiment that I'm going to be doing is making art on the fly versus planning. When doing videos for the channel is that requires planning, but I find that sometimes with the planning I veer off course because the art, I always let the art kind of guide me into the creation. And so, but when I create art without a plan, and many times that stuff is just absolutely gorgeous. It is by far some of the best work I've done when I just let go. So although I am, I'm giving you ideas of what to do, always, always, always do what feels right to you. If you don't want to use paper or whatever, then don't. Use what feels right for you. All right, I'm gonna let that dry for a sec. Now, I want to colorize this, and I'm going to work with not that. This is speaking out to me. Quinacridone Burnt Orange. It's a very intense color. It may be too intense. And what I'm doing, oh yeah, that's good. What I'm doing is I'm covering up the edges, but what I also want to do is I want to give this a bit of tint of color. So just over his legs, I'm just going to put a little bit of that color over his hands a little bit. So everywhere where it's white, it's going to be that tint. Like that. Because it's the orange is part of that. See how it just kind of blends it together? It makes for a cohesive art when you've got, you know, so you don't have just say one color that stands out against everything else when you've got that color repeated throughout your project. Again, this is something to experiment with. Now what you can do is, if you're going to use these paper dolls, because they're not cheap, is make a black and white photocopy of it and experiment with that first. Love these thick. I love how thick they are. Now, these ones here, what I could do, oh, let me, no, these I want to put with black. Let's, ooh, hang on. I'm going to use the Decor Decoupage. I mean, it's much more fluid, and I'm almost out of that. So what I'm going to do, other challenge for me, to stop using a new paintbrush every single time. A little bit of water. And what I want to, all I'm doing is I'm covering up the pieces. Put that there to dry. And this is where I'm covering it with to create that barrier layer. Come on, seriously. Okay, and I can even take some of that paint right with that decoupage medium. Bring in some of that water. See how when you add the water, it really gets rid of the intensity of it? Not liking that at all. Not liking that at all. Okay, I'm going to let that, while that's drying, I'm going to come in with a little bit of carbon black. And I'm going to do all the pieces, because I'm not sure which one I'm going to use, but I do these on all the projects anyways. So if I don't end up using it, it's just ready. And just come in gently. And this is going to make it stand out from the background. You can do this in any color, to be honest with you. And I got a comment on one of the videos about little quotes like this, a font. What to do is, if you use Google Fonts, like you can on any computer or on your phone or whatever, if you're able to use a certain font, you can do a search, or if you have a free Canva account, any type of font that's got typewriter in it. So you just do a search for typewriter, I say in Canva, because that's the best place to do your stuff like this, these little quotes. Do a search for typewriter. And you can type everything out, apply the font. And if you don't like the font, you can change it to something else with a click of a button. There you go. That's that. And I just realized I've got this little piece here, which I didn't do. that is just to create that barrier layer. Too lazy to get another bottle. Okay. Dry. Everything dry. Dry, 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 dry. Come on. It would help if I was using the right lid. There you go. Let's do this next. I'm going to take, if I was Gesso, where would I be? Just to show you that I could take a little bit of Gesso and just come in where the edges are, and it just sends things a little bit further into the background. Now, if you're using a water-soluble product, this won't work because you'll just dissolve it. And it creates a little bit more white space. You can do this with paint as well. Doesn't matter. Just diffuses everything. Especially up here, because I want the quote to be here. I don't want the background of all this text copy and all that stuff to interfere. Just a little bit too much there. And you know what a lot of this stuff is? It's just my inner critic that I don't like the orange and yellow. That's what it is. I can make excuses for blending the borders and all that stuff, but I think that's really what it is. But that looks so much nicer. To me. You may not like it, but the art is for me, not for you. And same thing as when you make art yourself. Like, I get people sending me pictures of their artwork and they say, what do you think? And I say, what do you think? My opinion doesn't matter. I can give you a review on composition, the actual technical things. But when it comes to the feeling of it, and that's all up to you. Okay. And then when I come in with the baby wipe, create that grunge look. There we go. Let's dry that. Then we can colorize the letters. And I think what I want to do with those is I want to work those as a dark gray. I think black is going to be too strong. Oh, let me just dry the... That won't take long at all. That's dry. Not going to cut that out. It's just life. How many of you have had dropped a water bottle or a paint bottle or dropped your paintbrush or something into a puddle of paint? And if you say never, you'd be lying. Everybody's done it. Everybody's done it. Ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. And it's going to be 1 part ultramarine blue and just a tiny bit less of the burnt sienna. And I'm going to mix in some matte medium in that. Where this is not going to change, instead of adding white to make it lighter, I just want to make it a little bit more transparent. scissors. Clean that. Use the same brush. Because the paper that I cut this out on is beige, so it won't take as many layers of color. And I also want to test. That looks really grungy. I like that. I'm going to add a touch of raw umber to that. I wanted that to be a little, not so blue. There we go. And this is also going to stiffen up the paper because it's fairly thin. There we go. All right. So I'm just going to paint these. And then when they're dry, we'll come back. I'll probably put maybe 4 layers on this to thicken up the paper as well. All right, so I'm going to use all 3 quotes, travelers traveling home. And I've got so it took about 3 coats to get that grungy with the numbers. And the numbers have meaning for me. It may not make sense for you, but it has meaning for me. And now we're going to stamp. Now I did a bit of a test here with something I want to do with this paint. And because I had the matte medium on there already, I was able to wipe it off to test. I want to put a little bit more contrast. But what I want to do now is get him placed, and I want to do some stamping behind him. And I don't want to put him right in the middle. I want to put him off center. And I'm going to use the globe. Whoopsie. Okay. Oh, darn, not long enough. Sorry. Either here or here. I'm thinking at the bottom. Not everywhere. Ah, just put it right there. Okay. Ah, nice. I love these ghost pieces. Nice. Nice. I am by no means a stamping expert, but when it works, that didn't quite. There we go. Okay. And the word discoveries. Oh, discoveries I'm going to have to do once everything's put together because it's so small. And the globe, or the world stamp. The world stamp. Oh, Gisele. Destination. Nice. Nice, nice, nice. And there's a little one here. I don't know why this was made into. It's a little squiggle, but it's so cute. Make sure you change the direction of stuff. It is so cute. I don't know why that was made into a stamp. All right, that's that. Now let me dry this. See, that's got some nice contrast now. I'm loving this here. The part that I like the least is the orange, but that's just me. Oopsie, scissors. Mia's looking at me saying, "What the heck, Ma?" Oops. Come on. There. So I was thinking about using that to neutralize some of this, but you know what? I'm not gonna, but I am gonna use that to do the edges. So now it's time to glue everything down. Use the same brush because I don't want to end up cleaning a gazillion brushes. And matte medium. So we'll put this down. This was like this. It'll be right over that little squiggle stamp. Now, if you guys know the meaning of a certain set of numbers that I'm using, I would love to hear your thoughts. There's only one person that I know that knows why I use these numbers or what special meaning they hold for me, or even where they initially came from. Stay there. You are curling and bugging me. It's a shame that I love this so much because now I'm going to lose it with that. What if I can leave that the way it is? I really like that. I think the numbers would actually ruin it. I can always glue that at the end. I'm going to put matte medium over everything. It unifies the finish. Gives it another layer of protection. All right. Okay, Baba. Love this. When I saw this paper doll cut out, this is a Tim Holtz one, I knew exactly the theme I was going to use him for. But I don't want any matte medium on top of him. Should hold it down. Problem with these is that the brush strokes show, and it's not that bad, but I was hoping just to have him have a uniform matte finish. Okay, and the quotes, I'm going to put that a little bit heavier there, and travelers, just going to put that lightly. Travelers, traveling home. See, now I'm not liking where that position is. That on top of that, and that doesn't need to be covered up with matte medium. Liquid glass would be nice on this because it would just give it a glass finish. Love that. And You know what? I think I like this just the way it is. I think the numbers would act... The numbers contain everything, but I love that look here. Okay. I would normally say go with your gut intuition, but I think my gut intuition right now is my inner critic. There we go. No, I'm not liking it. I don't think it's my inner critic. I just think it's too much contrast. I want the focus to be here and here. And even these numbers here, I think, are maybe a little bit strong. But it's an L-shaped composition going this way. Putting that there just kind of, it's too much. I wonder if it's too late to make one slight little change. Yeah, it's too late. I was going to put that on 2 lines. Because it's too close together. But I could break it up with a piece of paper. Why don't I take... Just want to break that up. And then I can put the stamp maybe here. Yeah, let's do that. But you see where I'm going with this, right? I like working in 3s. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's one thing. And then this and this are too close to being the same shape. So let's break that up. I think it was this way I wanted it. That looks like a shark. No, it was the other way. There we go. And then, yeah. Let me just get another piece. Actually, let's change that. I can change that shape. There we go. Yeah, now I'll put the here. I could even put it here, but I like this. But I want to break up. There's too much gaping hole there. Okay, so that's that. Now I'm going to. What if I can even use some of this stuff just to tint it a bit. I knew that was going to come in handy. Let's just darken that border a little bit. Might as well do this now. So this is the same thing as what I usually do with paint on the outside edge. You know, working the edge here. Not going to do anything here yet. Well, I'm still not comfortable with orange. Nope. Nope, 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 nope. Not happening. Not happening. And I'm going to set him down here so he doesn't look like he's floating. Nice. And you can do this with your fingers. I like using the brush sometimes for this because I can get a real grunge. I love grunge. Joe doesn't like it at all as well. That's fine. With the matte medium, it's almost like a very soft butter. Oops, that wasn't well. I'm here now. I'm here now. Oh, I love this. Love this. And I contain that. Because I put the matte medium in here, the stamping still shows through, not losing it. Too much. Yeah. Don't be afraid to use baby wipes. Okay, let me dry this. I find these letters a little strong, but I'm going to finish this up now. Now that Discovery, where's the other block? Discoveries and I'm going to do a ghost one on this one. So I'm going to stamp pad, paper towel. See if I can just work half. Yeah, there we go. Just work that half there and the other half there. Nice. Okay. Voila. The pieces of these are a little heavy for this paper. It's kind of, the paper's still kind of flimsy, but what I'm hoping is that when I work on this back side here is that I can thicken this up more with collage. The other thing maybe what I'll do is I'll just glue this stuff together. Won't bother with this. Yeah, you know what? Let's do that. I'm here. Let's do it. Just glue this piece, which means now the journal is going to be thicker. But I don't have to worry now about protecting this. And this green, ugh. It's going to make binding a little bit more challenging now. But that's better. It's like cardboard. Beauty. Love this. Now, look at that. Look at that. And now that I'm thinking about it, because the pages will all be this base color, is that it's going to be seamless anyways. But there's one more thing I want to do. I know. Well, always one more thing. Always one more thing. Let's cover up the stamp pad. And a little bit of water. You can use a watercolor pencil for this. I want to bring him out just a little bit more. Now there's matte medium in this, so don't freak out because there's that line that's there. Okay, now I'm just going to get a little bit of water. And let's just blend that out. Push that back in and just blend that out. Without the matte medium, this would have been dried already. He just pops a little bit more. You can do each piece in a section. Oh, I like how dark that globe is now. Yeah, I like that. Okay, between your junk and... There you go. I want to make this year about experimenting. I'm always into experimenting. You know, that hasn't changed, but I just really want to push the boundaries of experimenting. I'm reading a book called Creative Calling by Chase Jarvis, and one of the things in there is that, what did you do as a kid that made you weird? And as I think about this stuff that happened to me significantly when I was a kid, I had a science lab outside where I did experiments. My first experiment was what happens when you put your feet in water and touch a light bulb from a lamp that's plugged in. Intentional. Boy, did I get in trouble for that one. I had a silk screening. I was silk screening Cheap Trick t-shirts. Now, knowing what I know now, that wasn't really legal because I didn't copy their design. I just hands wrote Cheap Trick, and I made this silk screening. I was 10. I did photography. I had my own dark room, and I had a series where I photographed eggs, all before I was 13 years old. Then going from there, you know, I had Shandy when I was very, very young. I made my own. I went to school and all that stuff, but I was always making stuff, making jewelry, and you know, dabbling in floral arrangements. I was always making something, and that's carried forward. So I think what makes me weird is that I'm always making something, and that itself isn't weird, but it's how I make the stuff that might make me weird. I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But when I was a kid, most kids were out, you know, we lived in the country. Most kids were, you know, if you were in the city, the rich kids in the city, you know, they were soccer and sports and that. And us farm kids, we were riding our horses, building forts, you know, doing irrigation systems and that. I was doing experimenting and making. So I'm thinking that a meaning for this now, although it's travel, now finally leaning into where I want to be. Travelers traveling home. I'm funneling myself. I'm kind of guiding myself into what I truly want to make. And yeah, I'm still not like an orange, and I don't think I ever will. So anyways, and yeah, this piece now I'm thinking, see, now that I look at it this way, it's not bad, but it contains everything. So I may not. Let me know in the comments below whether I should put it in or leave it out. And yeah, let me know in the comments below, or fire me off an email. Go to artplace.ca, click the contact, and fire me off an email. But I would love to see what you've made based on this idea of to pick a theme and create something, and use one thing that's uncomfortable for you. And for me is that using orange, especially orange. But that's it, you guys. Alrighty, I'm going to clean up and get ready for my next project. But because I've been forgetting in every single video, let's go over the actual supplies that we used, or that I used. So when it comes to the actual cardstock, use whatever you have. It doesn't matter. As you can see, that there's very little of the actual initial scrapbooking paper that's showing through. So don't feel you have to use fancy supplies, because it's going to be covered up anyways. So for the collage medium, Decor Medium Matte Medium and Decor Americana Decoupage Medium, the matte, this is much thinner than this, and I went to this because I'm almost out of this. So that's that. And then the paints. And you'll notice I don't use any fancy color. I have a base palette. This is an extra, but it's a base palette that gives me the biggest bang for my buck when I color mix. Decor Media Fluid Acrylics, Ultramarine Blue, Peril Orange, Hansa Yellow Medium, Titanium White, Quinacridone Burnt Orange, Burnt Sienna, Raw Umber, and Carbon Black. Okay, so I use that. What else did I use? Stays on. I used a bunch of travel inspired stamps. Okay, and I used gesso. I use 70% rubbing alcohol. I use water, and let's see, paper doll, word clippings, and a set of grungy numbers I cut out on my scan and cut, my brother's scan and cut. But you can, if you have a number stamp this on tissue paper and do that. That would been better. But I keep looking at this, and this is too much contrast. I'm going to leave it. But I want you to let me know whether I should leave it like that or add those numbers there. So that's going to be your prompt for this video, with or without. So let me know. All right. So I hope that you enjoyed this, and I will see you in the next lesson. Until then, stay inspired.